Hello, folks. It's Billy, harnessing your wealth. Thanks for joining us for an episode on family law and divorce planning. I know that's a fun topic, right, Shaun?
Yeah, I can't wait to get on board with this one.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, too many people find themselves unsure of how to navigate this unfortunate situation that too many people have to go into. What do you do?
It's an undertaking for sure. And I guarantee you, if you're listening to this, you've either been through a divorce or know someone that has been through a divorce or contemplating going through a divorce.
Nearly half the people that get married end up in a divorce. So I think it's going to be relevant for most people. Take a listen. You're going to find this information helpful. And I want to welcome our special guest, Nonie Ferguson of Law Elevated. She's been practicing family law for 14 years, so she knows what she's talking about. Thanks for joining us today, Nonie.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, we are excited to have you. And just a little bit of background on Noni. She is approximately 14 years in the industry as as a legal expert in divorce. And she works for herself now. She owns her own company called Law Elevated. And we've known her for several years, worked with her and the firm she was with prior. But she is an expert in all of these matters that revolve around divorce. And I know that's just a subject that many of our clients are dealing with, or have come to find out that it's something that just doesn't resonate with so many people. They don't know what to do when they get in the middle of it. Like, how do I even move forward? I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through this relationship, or how do I dissolve my marriage with my spouse? I know that question comes up to Shaun and I quite often. So we want to dive in on that and get your expert opinion and just some of the things that people can take away to help them in their own navigation. So maybe start with your background. Just how did you get into this and why did you choose this field?
Sure. When I graduated law school as a public defender for about 4 years in the Miami area, and then I moved to Utah where my husband relocated because of work, had to take the bar again, which wasn't fun, but it gave me time to explore what I wanted to do in my career because I knew I was getting a little burnt out from being a public defender, being in the courtroom every single day, really high stress legal job. And it gave me time to reflect on how do I want to pivot. And once I passed the bar here in Utah, I knew family law was where I wanted to go because it's a good balance of I'm in the courtroom a lot, but I am also not there every day. And I still get to help people because that's what I loved about being a public defender was feeling like I'm helping my community, feeling like I'm helping families, feeling like I'm helping those less fortunate get through one of the hardest points of their lives, whether it's a loved one, friend, child who's getting in trouble with the law. It's a really scary time. And I think, equal to getting a divorce is a really scary time. So I still get to spend a lot of time helping, giving back to my community, and interacting with clients, which is really important to me, which is why I knew family law was going to be a good fit. And I think it also harnesses some of the skills I learned as a public defender. Being in a courtroom every day gives you great litigation skills, great litigation background that a lot of other practitioners necessarily don't have. Because family law, we don't get to be in trial a lot. So having a practitioner that has a lot of trial litigation experience is a good thing. And then just negotiation skills, negotiating plea bargains, trying to get the best result you can get for your client so they're not incarcerated for an extreme amount of time. All I think transitioned really well into the family law sphere.
That opens it up a little bit to know your background and why you do what you do. Now there's so many different avenues as you go into divorce. It's not cookie cutter. It's not something that's just the same method for everyone. I mean, ultimately people want to get through it and move on, but oftentimes it ends up in a really ugly, drawn out battle. And some people, they think that the best solution is to hire that, Boston
Bulldog
Terrier, or whatever you want to call it, mountain lion that's going to take their spouse apart. The emotions get really high.
Sure.
And I've found in the process that, in our business, we have a department or a division, I should say, that helps people in the financial realm with divorce. And I've found that people who want to get locked in and draw their sword and, battle it out end up in a worse place. So I want your perspective. You've obviously worked in a lot more cases than we have, just by nature of a lot more people need you to help them get through it. So what in your mind is the most common approach to divorce? And maybe then what is the best approach?
Sure. Typical attorney answer to begin with is it depends, because some cases you just can't avoid the litigation. But my approach is I always like to try to save my clients from litigation first and foremost, and save it as a last resort or an absolute necessity. So if you can start the divorce as uncontested as possible or non-litigious as possible, that's good. Is that an uncontested divorce, meaning you're just going to resolve it through a stipulation and no one's going to formally file, no one's going to serve the other? Maybe. But just because somebody does formally file and serve the other, that doesn't mean it has to be World War III. That doesn't mean you have to be the bulldog. That just means you might need some of the protections that filing gives you, like deadlines or mandatory disclosure requirements. It means you need a little bit of the court's help, and that does not mean it has to be complete bulldog. And I think the best outcome ultimately doesn't necessarily depend on how you file, is it uncontested or contested. I think the best outcomes come from a mediated resolution, where you can involve professionals like yourself to help in the areas where I'm not an expert. Your clients have the power to reach their own decision with the help of the professionals they've retained versus letting a stranger in a robe that they've never met,
Mhm.
that has no idea who their children are, reads a couple pieces of paper, and then has to make decisions that affect this family for the rest of their lives. I think a mediated agreement gives people the power to decide and choose, this is something I can live with, this is how I can move forward, this is how my family can move forward. I think that's where the real best resolutions stem from.
How do
Yeah.
you someone walks into your office, how do you explain that to them and try to
Yeah.
kind of guide them from, they're coming in, they're probably hot, they're probably mad or upset, very overwhelming experience. How do you kind of educate them and steer them in that direction?
Sure. I think first and foremost, what I've always found to be important, that is a little bit of a different approach, is I make sure that I listen. I make sure that they come in and they tell me what's going on in their life. And I don't interject with legalese immediately. I don't try to make them think I'm the smartest person in the room. I think the most important thing is to listen, let someone tell you their story, let them tell you the trauma that they're going through, the tragedy that they're going through, because nobody gets married thinking they're going to get divorced, right? It's not the goal. Nobody thinks they're going to have to share their kids half of the time or however it works out. So it is, they're going through a tragic moment in their life, and you listen. And after they tell you their story and you ask whatever questions you need to get more information, I try to convey to them a strategy. And with that strategy, a lot of it depends on, do they get along? Can they still talk to each other? If they can't talk to each other, if communication's out the window, an uncontested divorce isn't probably the best route for them, because you still have to have the ability to communicate with your spouse, a level of trust that accounts they're disclosing are the correct accounts and there's nothing being hidden. If there's no communication, if there's no trust, I guide them towards filing a petition for divorce so that they get the protections from the court when it comes to disclosure requirements, deadlines, the ability to subpoena, the ability to involve forensic accountants if needed, to get experts on board that an uncontested process doesn't really give you. They're just very different. And I think in order to have a successful uncontested divorce, you need some level of trust still and some level of communication. So I try to assess that. And I always still tell people these are the three ways or the two biggest ways you can go about getting a divorce. And this is why I think this is the most beneficial route for you. And if other professionals, come up in my analysis of hearing what they need, I immediately get to that and recommend that as well.
So oftentimes it might be a specialist in understanding the custodian relationship with the children maybe, and obviously the financial end of it to help divide assets and divide incomes and sort through all of that mess sometimes. What
Yeah.
is the most common approach you take when you have a high net worth uh, client and they have significant assets, kids? What's the route that you find is most beneficial in that situation?
Great question. And again, it depends. If there's transparency, if they're a couple where they've always had access to each other's accounts, or let's just say in this scenario, it's the male who's been working and the female stay at home, but she still has access to the accounts, she can see them. um, then I think they can go uncontested and still involve professionals to get a great outcome. If there hasn't been transparency, if it's a situation where one spouse says, I just never handled the finances, I took care of the kids, or I worked and my wife took care of the finances, like that was her deal. And then you don't have transparency, you don't know the details of the accounts, maybe you don't even have the passwords to log in. When you don't have that, and maybe there's not a complete willingness to disclose that, then I think you need the formal petition for divorce, contested divorce. And I think, unfortunately, the term contested divorce has a negative connotation with it that's not always warranted. It really just means you're filing a petition, you're serving someone, and you need some of the protections like an automatic injunction to be entered that says you can't cash in your 401k. And you need discovery deadlines that says by this date you have to disclose all the financial accounts. And if you don't, and then we will subpoena and we will do discovery requests. So to answer your question, I do just think it depends, and it all depends on how much transparencies existed during the relationship.
Or trust, if they still trust one
Exactly.
another, I would say.
That's a big one, right?
I think
Absolutely.
that's huge.
If one spouse thinks that they're being lied to or manipulated or
Yeah.
assets are being
And
hidden, which is actually
and
quite common.
uncontested divorce won't work.
I mean, we see that quite often. I'm sure you do too, right?
I love the business owner. The business is worth nothing.
It's worth nothing.
It's worth
Right, of
nothing.
course.
And my income, it's going to be cut in half next year.
Do you realize
So I
that I'm on
cannot pay
commission?
alimony. Yeah, I'm on
Right,
commission.
right.
That
Right,
bonus, I
yeah.
can't guarantee. You've heard all the same things that we hear all the time,
yeah.
but
And any of those scenarios just need to move forward with a contested divorce petition so you can, get down to the nitty gritty of what exists.
what about, sorry, Bill, before
No, go
you
ahead.
go, what about collaborative divorce? Can you speak on that a little bit? Because we've been
Yeah.
involved in a lot of those and with you too.
Yeah. I was going to say I've done them with you. Yeah. I think collaborative can be great. Again, collaborative is where you really need the trust. Or, just the agreement to involve professionals who are going to get down and get the documents they need. But collaborative, you really do need that trust in your soon to be ex, I think, for that process to run smoothly. Because the second it doesn't, you lose that attorney. And so the attorney that you've built trust with and maybe you've worked with a year for, if all of a sudden you need litigation and you need subpoenas and you need, extensive discovery, you lose your attorney. So you're back to square one. You have to get a new lawyer. And that's really time consuming and financially not a smart decision. So I think for collaborative to truly work, you need trust.
Right. You have that motivation to come to a resolution so you don't have to start all over.
Exactly.
And then you also are commonly involving all the experts, and the ones we've been involved in a lot, everyone's in the same room, which I think is powerful.
Mhm.
If everyone
I
can
do
sit
too.
in the same room and communicate, like, well, why do you want the 401k, or why do you want the house, or why do you think this scenario makes sense? And they can go back and forth rather than getting a letter in the mail saying, this is what I want to happen. You're going, what the hell?
It's like
Why?
getting a text and it's all out of context when you're reading it.
Yeah.
Where you're
Yeah.
in the same room, you understand body language, you understand their reactions, and you understand the hot buttons, because truly everyone has their hot buttons. And a lot of times for the wife, it's the kids, the kids are
Mhm.
number one. sometimes it's the home, the marital home, and I'm not going to give up the marital home. So our job can often be educating on what is the most appropriate asset, not necessarily what is the one that you're holding on to emotionally. And also not just assets, but with the kids. And can you guys come to some sort of a cooperative resolution to where you're not going to destroy the relationship that your kid is now going to have to navigate with both of you? And I find that the most challenging thing. It's sad because I went through it not only as a kid, but then as a parent. Never thought I'd ever get divorced, but damn it, it came along and it bit me too. And so now I had to watch my kids go through it, and that was even more difficult from the standpoint of seeing your kids have to go back and forth. And now you're trying to parent them in a way, and the other parent doesn't like that, so they cut your legs out from under you. So how do you help your clients in those aspects, Nonie?
Yeah, great question. Anytime there's kids involved, we want to save them from litigation. Litigation automatically usually makes the dad the worst dad that ever existed, mom the worst mom that ever existed. And it's really hard to move forward with a co-parenting dynamic after all of the mudslinging and accusations. And so I really try to avoid kids entering the courtroom in any way, shape, or form. If we can save them from a custody evaluation process, if we can save them from a guardian ad litem, just two people decided to get married and have a family or have a kid. Let's try to resolve it between the two adults. I think that's the best way to do it. When two people can't just figure it out on their own, I think that through the collaborative process or a mediation to resolve the divorce is absolutely the best outcome to keep the kids from it. My top things I always tell my clients, besides tell me everything, because I can't help you if I don't know everything. If kids are involved, I don't want to hear that you're talking to the kids about it. I don't want to see a text message. I don't want to see the other parent saying, well, my kid came home and said this. Like, that's my pet peeve as an attorney, is all your kids need to know is mom and dad love you, and we're going to figure it out and everything will be okay.
Yeah. It's sad when kids are used as pawns.
And they are too often.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I really won't work with clients who are coming in with that kind of a mindset right off the bat. Is no, I'm not going to let him see the kids. No way.
Yeah.
You
can just tell it's going to be combative from the get-go.
It's difficult to watch, and you know there's a child or multiple children out there who are going to grow up in a different situation. They didn't ask for this. Mom and dad did.
Right.
Statistically, is it still 50%? Around 50% people are going to get divorced?
Yeah, I think we're a little less, but right around there.
Huh. And what is in your mind, what is the number one reason for divorce?
Good question.
Just stay down.
We're full of good questions.
Yeah, we love asking questions.
I think a lot of times it's financial, for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I do think it's just fundamental differences as you get older, and that kids create in a dynamic that
grow
you
apart.
didn't expect when you were younger and you got married.
I mean, marriage is a work in progress.
I would just say it's easy.
It's not easy, bro. You're always having to, bend and give, and it's a lot more giving. It seems like sometimes to keep both of you happy, because it is something that you're not necessarily agreeing with every single thing that your spouse does, says, how they act, what they believe in, and you have to figure out how to give and take. But I think from what we see is a lot of times it is that financial end where one is the saver trying to prepare for the future, and the other is the, hey, let's go have fun. We have this money. Why are we keeping it in the investment? We don't need a 401k.
Yeah.
And then, you get beyond that, and a lot of it is how to raise the kids, who to bring into their circles. And then I'm really worried about the future with the kids, growing up with social media nonstop. And it's almost becoming trendy, I know. To see divorced parents and going back and forth. And I hope that's not the future. I really do. I hope there's something we can do about that.
You're scaring me.
I
You
know.
got 2 7-year-olds, bro.
Being honest.
You're right, though.
It's scary.
It's
We
crazy.
didn't have it as kids, so it's a whole different ballpark. And parents, posting about their significant other during a divorce. That's a big issue that I always tell my clients, like, stop the social media. Like, if you think you're an influencer, you're not going to be an influencer right now.
Yeah.
Like, the influencer, turn it off, because you're doing yourself no favors, you're doing your kids no favors. And commissioners and judges sure don't like it when parents are commenting about the other parent, or even like loosely, right? Well, I didn't say him. Well, we can, infer.
Read between the
And
lines.
yeah, and that's a big no-no too.
And once it's out there forever.
Correct.
There's
No
no
kids don't realize that, I mean, even the ones that I used to coach. Well, I just quit, but from the standpoint
resigned.
of a coach,
Resigned. Quit sounds harsh.
It's harsh. But I resigned as the head coach after 9 years of coaching at the high school level, and all these kids, they want to go on to play college. At least I was not all, but most. And the first thing the college coaches ask me is, do they have social media accounts? I want to see them because they're going to learn a lot about the kid and what kind of behavior they have, how do they treat other people,
Yeah.
do they post inappropriate things about themselves, about others?
Yeah.
That's it's really a big one. With regards to going back on this whole collaborating with other professionals, how have you experienced that? So let's walk through a scenario. You have a husband and wife, pretty substantial net worth. They call you up, or let's say the wife calls you up. They want to get divorced, but they're still communicating pretty well. Obviously, you can take them down a number of different avenues. Hey, we're gonna go full litigation mode, or we're gonna maybe potentially call a mediator, try to resolve it that way. Or there's a third option, which is this collaborative approach, which is, I would say, the newer of the three approaches, which is we're all going to get in the same room and hire whatever experts we deem necessary to help you understand your situation, to make the most, to get the resolution most advantageous for both of you. No one's going to win here, but we're going to try to come to some sort of agreement with give and take and negotiations. So I know a lot of attorneys, and I'm not going to name names, but they choose the first approach.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even need to get your husband involved. Let's just, he's screwed you over real bad. We need to go full litigation.
Mm-hmm.
How has the industry changed since you started, and what makes people want to go one way versus another when they're leading their clients? Because obviously you guys have the most influence on how divorces end up.
Right. I agree. And that's why, you hate to see the bulldog litigious approach from the outset, because I don't think anybody can benefit from it. I think sometimes it's necessary. But for me, I like to explore that, and let's try different avenues before we need to, go full litigation mode. Because often there's ways to settle without needing litigation. And a lot of times people like you guys are the ways to settle. And whether that's in a collaborative process, or maybe like a more uncontested divorce, or where both people are on the same page that let's just mediate this and let's try to avoid court. Because that outside professional, especially in like a collaborative setting where both people agree to use them, is viewed as neutral. So I'm just giving these numbers, I'm given the data, and it's my job to present reasonable solutions that get you guys to the finish line with saving thousands and thousands of dollars, if not $100,000 litigating this divorce. And you guys, as well as some other professionals, really help achieve that outcome, which is huge. Because as attorneys, we all have to realize we're one part of the puzzle. We can't do all the things. We're not experts in all the things. And a lot of attorneys aren't good at acknowledging that, right?
I was just going to
those are
say.
probably some of the lawyers who go straight for litigation, because unfortunately for them, there's a benefit in doing that too, because it's expensive and it's time consuming. But I very much realize I'm one piece of the puzzle and that I am not a financial advisor. I am not a CPA. I'm not a tax accountant, a tax attorney, excuse me. So I think the sooner you realize you can involve professionals that understand fields better than you do, you're going to get your client and really both parties a better outcome. And hopefully the other attorney realizes that their client is going to get the better outcome from involving these neutral professionals who really are just presenting reasonable alternatives that don't cost an insane amount of money.
How often do your cases go all the way to court?
Oh, seldom. I would say we have maybe 1 to 2 trials a year
Okay.
that ultimately go all the way to litigation. Um, and I think that's a little bit of testament to like the mantra of the firm is that we try to save that unless it's absolutely necessary. And let's mediate. Let's have 2 mediations. Let's try to resolve this before we're going to trial. Most of our trials when we do go are anywhere from, 3 days to 2 weeks, and they're emotionally traumatizing, they're financially traumatizing usually. And most people leave feeling, like they could have gotten that outcome earlier, right?
Yeah. We've seen some bad ones where clients didn't want to settle and they just wouldn't come to terms and they just wanted to keep going and fight. And I don't know what your experience has been, but what is the average cost on these that drag all the way out and go to trial after a couple years?
It really depends. Because if kids are involved and there's custody evaluators, that could be anywhere from a week to a 2 week trial. So it really depends. I think usually on the low end, when a trial is starting, attorneys are quoting anywhere from, 15 to $50,000 initial retainers. It really depends how many days, how many hours of prep.
Yeah.
Usually, every day of trial is about 2 days of prep for the attorney. So
It adds
really
up.
depends. Yeah.
Adds up.
Well, we
fast.
had a client several years ago, but he was a pilot, and his wife was so bitter that the negotiations kept going on, and it's after the third year and multiple attempts to settle, and then this expert, and then this forensic expert, and then that, and it just kept going, and then the valuation of the property, and she wouldn't agree to those, and so in the end, it was a judge,
Just
like you
gotta
said,
litigate it.
it was a judge who decided yes, no, maybe, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen here, and it was a $200,000+ legal expense when you added it all up.
Mhm.
Just
And the
the
stress.
stress and the
the
emotional
time,
turmoil of the whole
yeah.
thing. Holy hell.
That's why I think
Yeah.
sometimes people get a little bit hesitant when they hear like a collaborative approach. They're like, well, I have to get a certified divorce financial analyst, then a tax person, and then a custody. They're thinking, oh my God, this is going to add up. But that's not necessarily true. Those
No.
people are all there to help move this process along. And we've found it actually finishes up quicker,
Yeah.
less
Oh, yeah.
costs, less emotional distress.
And with a game plan to go forward. So you're not just left, okay, now what? Okay, here's my divorce decree done. Now, how do I manage my life going forward? Because everything's
Right.
changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And I think that's one of the beautiful pieces of involving those professionals, especially you guys, is it doesn't just end right there. And I think that that's really powerful in trying to talk to your client and convince is the wrong word, but reiterate to them that this is a good avenue for you to take. Like involving these people is not just to get you to the finish line, but it goes beyond.
And you're not giving up anything in that process. I think some people think, well, I need to fight. No, you're probably going to get a better outcome through this process, more understood outcome of what's going to happen now and down the road versus walking into a courtroom for, like you said, 2 weeks or something. And then, bam, here's the decision. See you later.
And you lose all control.
Yeah.
All control.
Scary. Yeah, and I think the negotiation.
There's a possibility of attorney's fees being awarded to, the quote unquote prevailing party. And there's a lot of downsides to litigating, but sometimes you have people who are principled and they just won't agree because they won't agree. And you have to litigate. You can't negotiate with that person. And, you got to let the judge give them a decision.
What are the biggest mistakes you see people make?
I would say kind of what I said earlier is involving your children. I think that's a huge mistake. I think it has lifetime consequences for them, psychologically, emotionally. It's a terrible thing to do to your kids. So I think that's number one. Number two would be not telling your attorney. A lot of people maybe don't quite understand attorney-client privilege, and that we're vaults. Like, tell us, because if you tell us, we can plan for it. Attorneys hate being blindsided by pleadings. So, oh, my business isn't worth anything, or I stopped it 5 years ago, and then you get evidence to the contrary that shows, well, you just posted to social media that
Here's
you're
a
not
tax
doing
return we
right.
found from this year.
Yeah, exactly. So
Hard to defend that one,
do
Noni.
everything so that we can help you to the best of our abilities. Otherwise, we can't, and we're blindsided, and it's really hard to regain the trust of the court once you've, you know, been maybe not forthcoming with them.
Right.
Yeah. You lose that trust. That's really hard to negotiate things after.
Exactly, that too.
Mm-hmm. I find that when you're going into a negotiation, it's best to be forthcoming. And people, it's amazing to me. You watch if somebody offers something, offers up is the first one to offer something like here's a fig leaf. The other party decides I better offer something, so they come forward. Well, you've been good about it. You can have that, let's do custody 50-50 now. Versus the alternative there is start pointing fingers right off the bat. You're not getting that. That was mine. My dad gave that to me. Okay, right off the bat, we're fighting.
Yeah.
And then the
Right.
whole meeting spirals out of control. So,
Well, that's why you have to have, when that happens, I think there's a lack of preparation, right? You have to go into these mediations, settlement negotiations with your client prepared and a little bit of control. Like, hey, we're not going to get into, the beer mug that your great grandpa gave you, because there's bigger fish to fry here. And we're not going to blow this all up over the sentimental beer mug. And that's a hard conversation, because to some people, the coffee cup or the mug, whatever it is, the picture means a lot to them. Or it's just that one thing that they're like, again, principle. No, this is my thing. And you have to go into a mediation preparing them like, these are the big ticket items. And if we can accomplish this, then you got to take it as a win. And again, nobody leaves winning from a mediation or settlement negotiation. You meet in the middle, and what I always tell my clients is, you're never going to leave feeling like a rock star. You leave feeling like, I reached an agreement I can live with, I can move forward.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the best strategies for people. So let's just assume that you have a sister, and your sister is going to go through a divorce, and she's calling you up for advice, and you want to help her navigate it the best way possible, emotionally and also financially. What advice do you give her right off the bat? What do you tell her to start doing?
Well, I probably tell her to just get a therapist, because that helps a lot. And do your research. I think like knowledge is power. Get out there, research attorneys, see which ones you think that you like just from social media or websites, schedule meetings with them, meet with a bunch, and go with one you feel like you have like a connection with, not just one who, tells you, I'm gonna save you from alimony, right? Because no, most attorneys can't. So go with one that you feel is honest, that listens to you and you have a connection with, because that is, I think, going to transpire to a good resolution, because that allows for trust building, and trust building is going to help your attorney be able to gear you in the right direction. Another point I would probably tell a sibling is just, again, like, knowledge is power. Like, know your financial portfolio, know your accounts, know your spouse's accounts, get that information, because if you have that information, that can save you a lot of time and money and legal resources.
How about documenting things? So when a new client comes to meet with you, if they're organized and have things laid out, does that help them? Does that get them in a better position to kind of move forward without requiring you
If
and
they
your
have
staff?
access to everything, and access to the accounts, access to credit card statements, retirement, taxes, and they have it all ready to go and give to their attorney, that helps immensely. It makes the discovery process easier, or just exchanging it in a collaborative process easier. Yeah, it's huge. And when clients can afford it, you really do want to gear them in the direction of retaining the certified divorce financial planners, to having if there's a lot of couples do have tax issues, so you bring in the tax attorney, the CPA. If parent time is something that they can't agree on, you bring in a therapist to help navigate that. So if they can afford it, I think that, again, other pieces of the puzzle, other professionals can really all work together to get the best result for both parties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we see quite a bit the person that starts to feel like the wheels are coming off. They are usually the last to know. They finally realize kind of too late. The other party is kind of already
checked out.
Yeah, they're putting things that they're getting ready, right? They've already prepared for the exit. And they might have already done a few things to the accounts and started to separate accounts and do different things with credit cards. And,
buy things.
Oh, they do tons,
Yeah.
Getting that last ditch of expenses paid or spent. But what do you tell those people that wake up and find out that, hey, they've been fooled all this time and now they're late to the party. They don't know what's going on with the financial stuff.
Yeah, it's hard. So at first, I want to hear all about it, and then empower them. Like, we're going to get to the bottom of it. So just because you were put in a corner, just because you were blindsided and you didn't have the information, it's not going to stay that way. We're going to get to the bottom of it. We're going to find the accounts. We're going to engage in the discovery process. The collaborative and or uncontested divorce probably isn't the right route for you. But again, it also doesn't mean it's going to be World War III. It means that we're going to use our court system to get you the documents you're entitled to see.
Mm-hmm.
And you help them align with a therapist. Sometimes it's also like a personal trainer I have my clients start seeing, because if they feel better, if they feel stronger, like maybe it's a couple weeks or a couple months, but if that progression, if they start feeling more confident in themselves, and know that they have a good attorney, know that they have a therapist who's helping them, know that they have financial advisors that are working with, they start to feel confident and they're like, I didn't need him, or maybe I didn't know about these accounts, but now I do. And now I'm working with people who are going to help me continue to learn and empower myself financially and independently. So I think it's a process where I hope to really help them, become better, become stronger, so that when it's all over, with the help of others like you guys, they leave better than when they came in.
That's why Billy and I have always enjoyed working with you, because there are attorneys out there that think they can wear all of those hats. That they're the tax person, they're the advisor, they're the therapist, and they just want all of that right there in their shop
or something.
Yeah, I don't know if it's billable hours. I don't know, but your approach has always been like, when you need to get us involved, or to get a custody evaluator involved, and I think that is a huge.
It's a positive
for you and your clients and your firm and the way you guys operate. Mm-hmm. We've always been impressed with that. Enjoyed working with you that way.
Yeah, that's where I think most people should start when they're considering a divorce, is start with someone who's going to represent you in a way that's going to help you not only get what you deserve. Let's just take that off the table, because I think all attorneys are going to want to do that, but not put you through the mill or the ringer just for those billable hours, or for whatever they find is necessary for them to justify their own existence. Sometimes it's the power trip, they get by running people through this in a long legal battle. They enjoy it. And I don't think that's the right method. People are in this trauma, and I think the quicker you can get them out, it's better for their health. It's better for their finances, for sure. And it's most importantly better for their kids, if they have any, to move them through this and move them back into the life that they can live.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's just not have any do-it-yourselfers out there, because we've had a few people calling. Well, how do I follow that? I want to do it by myself.
I know.
Okay, fine. Go change your oil to, and tomorrow schedule your dental implant, because you can do that, I'm sure.
And do your knee surgery the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild.
They're the hardest cases to fix. People that do it themselves and then ask you for help later.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things get hidden, and I don't know. That's why that trust thing is really important. I would say maybe less than 50% of the people that we work with who call us, sometimes they call us first because they want to start figuring out the financial end. But most of the time, we're gonna hear from one or the other, and then quite often we'll hear from an attorney who wants to bring us on board, like you would, to help make light of what's going on in the financial world for these clients. Sometimes it's just an individual client. On a rare side, we'll get a call from clients, a couple that want us to help them jointly together, because they understand the value in that. By working together, they're going to resolve things in a better way for themselves. Moving forward.
Yeah. And I think that happens, when I meet with clients that, you hear their story and you tell them, this is what I think you need or what you should do. I've had a lot of times where I'm saying, I think you guys should work, with Shaun or Billy, and they take your information down, and I know that I don't hear from them again, but like, that is so worth it to know that they're going to go to someone, they're going to handle it between themselves, and at least use someone to get a fair resolution when it comes to the finances. And then those two are probably going to go on and co-parent beautifully together, because they save themselves from, what can be a really
nasty fight.
Nasty.
Yeah, we appreciate that, working with us, trusting us. We always hear that January is a big month for divorce. Is that true? Is it just because they get through Christmas and
you get through Christmas and then New Year, new me?
Sick, New Year's resolution. I'm going to have a better life, or what is it?
Maybe
can't pay the Christmas bill.
I think it's people who, you have to be pretty
cold.
I don't know.
Cold-blooded.
Terrible is not the right word. Cold to serve someone right before Christmas, right?
Right at Christmas.
So I think people wait a little bit until after the holidays. They already have their mind made up, and they think January, like, new year, new me, or I'm finally going to do this. I don't have the holidays weighing over me. But
sometimes
it is busy.
Sometimes I think it's the tax situation, just the filing, get to the end of the year and you start the first of the year, and I'll go ahead and file single now. I made it through last year. We filed joint to get a little bit better tax deduction.
Some people do it for bonuses.
Yeah,
they're
true.
like, if this now, my spouse isn't going to get the following bonus.
A lot of little games people play, in divorce. It's like a chess match. What are you going to do? Are you going to go there? Well, I'm going to go here. And I'm going to wait for them. I'm going to slaughter you.
Exactly.
Bring the night out.
But, it doesn't have to be bloody. And so I think with people listening, if you're thinking of that divorce is maybe in your future, or someone that a family member that needs help, and they don't know quite how to navigate it, because very few people really do. There's no manual.
Don't listen to your cousin or your sister that got divorced Uncle 10 years ago, and they know what's going on. That is the worst.
Go after that son of a bitch. You take him down. I mean, that's usually the advice that they give you. But
bad advice.
I would say, number one, contact someone like Nonie, who understands it, has dealt with hundreds of these cases and understands the nuances and how to help you figure it out emotionally. And especially if you have kids, please, 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 I would strongly urge you, beg you to think about them first. As if you were in their shoes, how would you want your parents to go about this process? But Nonie, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your information.
Thank you
how do people get
for me and my clients? Appreciate you.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Thank you. How do people get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you?
Our number is 435-800-2963, and then the website is Law Elevated, and social media at Law Elevated.
Great. Law Elevated, folks. Call them.
All right.
Thanks so much, Nonie.
All right. Thanks,
You
guys.
take care.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
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 Thank you for listening. For more information about today's show, please check out the show notes. Visit our website at www.petersonws.com or give us a call at 801-475-4002. Peterson Wealth Services is a registered investment advisor. This is a paid-for advertisement. Information presented on this program is believed to be factual and up-to-date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of a personalized investment advice, but are limited to the dissemination of general information. A professional advisor should be consulted before implementing any of the options presented. Peterson Wealth Services.